Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Affordable Key Comic Books. It's been a few years since I've done one of these, and since I reopened the Underrated, Undervalued series again, I figured I'd just take a look at maybe a few books that I've added to the collection over the last 2-3 years, whenever that last video was, and figured I'd put together a video or two revitalizing it. So we could call this Underrated, Undervalued Revival. Instead of whatever part it's supposed to be. Part 13, part 14. Let's just call it Revival. So here I have a handful of books. Again, some, I think, pretty cool books that I feel are very affordable. And just the way the market is nowadays, I think they're going to stay affordable for a while. I know when I was doing the original series, volume 1 of the series, as this is volume 2, some of those books, they were still quite affordable. They were on the verge of maybe getting not so affordable. Things like that. Sorry about that. And all that. But I think that these books here, I think, are fairly affordable, and they will stay affordable for a while. So for those of you who are just looking to fill out a couple of books for your runs, looking to add maybe a couple cool covers or first appearances to your collection, I think this is pretty decent. All right. So it is October, and I showed my morgue covers, and I'm going to be showing some more stuff. I'm going to be showing cemetery covers in the upcoming videos and all that. And you're probably seeing on Instagram all these different people. Those of you that are on Instagram, I'm on Instagram at Reapertate. But for all of you that are watching videos that are showing horror books, pre-code horror, all that sort of stuff, seeing pics, I got some horror books here for you. Now they're not pre-code because they're not necessarily affordable. Not that all pre-codes are super expensive, but some of the ones that people really want, they tend to be. But I have some Bronze Age stuff here for those of you that are looking to add some horror books from the Bronze Age. Got a couple here from both. I believe I have DC in here too, but I know I have some Marvel. Oh, I do have DC. And we're going to start with Marvel. Here we have Vault of Evil #1. This was when Marvel, during the Bronze Age, the 70s, when the code became a little laxed. I think it became a little lax in the very beginning, the early 70s. And then you started having all these horror titles starting coming out. Because for about a good decade and a half, from like 1956 all the way to maybe 1972, 71, something like that, couldn't have these horror titles. There weren't that many horror titles out. Unless they were magazines, and then they had different rules. But the big two, Marvel and DC, they simply just weren't putting them out. And then when the code became lax, when you started having vampires and mummies and all these other things, you had a whole series of new books coming out, and Vault of Evil was one of them. So the next one's from DC by one of my favorite artists, Neil Adams. We have The Witching Hour #14. Such a great cover, isn't it? I bought this book, I think, a few years ago, and actually, it's probably like a 6. I probably should get a much higher grade now that I'm looking at it. I just never got around to it, but it's really a cool book. But even in a higher grade, and especially this grade here, pretty affordable. Pretty affordable book, and a really cool book. Just love Neil Adams' work. I love some of Neil Adams, a lot of Neil Adams horror covers from that era. Here's a pretty affordable book, I think, and it's a classic cover. I think this is the continuation of Galactus' origin in The Mighty Thor #169. Great cover, right? And I still think it's fairly affordable. Now, like with volume 1 of this series, sometimes affordable is different to other people. Are we talking is that hundreds of dollars? Well, it's probably hundreds of dollars if it was in the 9 region. But for that book, that's probably in a 6, maybe a 7. I think it's not that bad, right? And here's one, a great one. And it's not a key issue. It's just a beautiful cover. And I think even in the higher grades, it's pretty cheap. We have The Mighty Thor 150. I mean, look, Look at a great Hela cover. I like Hela a lot. And I love it when she's on the cover. And her helmet is like one of the best helmets, I think, in the Marvel Universe. I know a lot of people say Magneto's helmet is probably one of the more well-known, if not the best helmet in the Marvel Universe. And they're right. But I like Hela's, too. And I think when the movie came out, Ragnarok, it really, they did a great job with showing off that helmet. So now let's go to Atlas. All right. This was I believe this was my very first Atlas book I bought several years ago. It's not pre-code, but I think it's 1956, 57, so it's right after the code started. That was when they had that stamp in the corner, big, where everybody could see it. But I still think that a lot of these early code books, where Atlas was making the transition from pre-code horror into just code, I don't know if I want to say horror, but suspense. And with that, we have World of Suspense, number 5. I think this is fairly affordable. Pretty cool cover. It still has almost like a mysterious, maybe not gory horror cover to it, but it still presents something as interesting for those out there that really can't go too deep into the pre-code horror hole, as many of us have gone into. Because once you go in, you're never going to come out. Here's another DC Bronze. So great cover. I believe this is a gray tone cover, but just really, really cool. Here we have House of Mystry 205. Again, for those of you around this time of year, you want to get some horror covers, horror books, you can go with some of those. And in particular, that one. Great book. Okay, we have a few more, and then we're going to end. Here we go back to a Marvel Silver Age book. And I think this is a fairly affordable book, both in mid and high grade. Here we have the Avengers number 52, first appearance of the Grim Reaper. You know, if you're into collecting first appearances and you want to collect first appearances of villains, you know, I think it's a pretty cool book to have. Is it one that I think is going to jump? I don't think so. I mean, even, you know, nowadays, even if that character does show up in the movie, you just wait for the movie to be over, and then that book will go back down if it had gone up to begin with. But it's mainly just for people that just want to get some affordable keys or affordable first appearances. I think that would be a good one. And I think this is another one, too. Here we have, and I probably should upgrade this one, because mine's kind of, now that I'm looking at it, it's a little beat around the corners. So I'll see if I probably got this for a good price. But this is definitely something I'd like to upgrade. Here we have Fantastic Four number 65, the first appearance of Ronan the Accuser. Again, this is a character that showed up in Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain Marvel. Run its course, or he has run his course, even if he shows up again in the past in some future Marvel movie or series. I don't think it's going to impact the value of that book, you know, when it goes, for it to go up in value. I think it's going to stay pretty steady. 3 more. We got 2 DCs and we're going to close at a Marvel. Here, you know, this is an interesting one. And it's fairly affordable. And so affordable, I think I need to upgrade my copy. But it's like I said, it wouldn't be in this video if I didn't think it was affordable. World's Finest number 173, the first Silver Age appearance of Two-Face. Now, it wasn't really Two-Face that showed up, but I forget who was impersonating Two-Face. But it's still considered the first Silver Age appearance of Two-Face. Now, if you can't get the first appearance of Two-Face, I originally had it for years. I wound up selling it off to get my Amazing Fantasy 15, which I think was a far better idea, far better book. But, you know, I used to have a restored copy of the first appearance of Two-Face. But whether you have a restored copy or a not restored copy, those early Batman villains, they're very hard to get. Very hard to pay for, very expensive. So for those that want to collect first Silver Ages, and even those are pretty high too, but first Silver Age appearances or first Bronze Age appearances, I don't think you could go wrong with World's Finest 173. Here's a really good one for Halloween. This is a pretty nice grade too. Here we have House of Mystry 217. Yeah, talk about that cover, right? Pretty cool cover. And the last for this video, last for Affordable Key Comic Books Revival, Volume 2, Affordable Key Comics Volume 2, if you want to call it. We have Avengers 196, the first full appearance of the Taskmaster. And I have an 8.5 copy. I know I didn't pay that much for it, and I think I bought this like within the last year or something like that in auction. You know, I remember there was this again. This was one of those books that was climbing in value right before the Black Widow movie, and that was around the time, or a little after, when a lot of books were just selling for just such crazy amounts of money. Remember, I was doing this crazy prices video in the early 2021. Those have been watching, and it was insane. But now books like this, and it's not a, you know, I mean, some people may want a 9.4 or a 9.6, and of course you're going to have to pay. But, you know, for an 8.5, you know, this is, I think, a fairly cheap book. And if you like first appearances, you like George Perez, you like cool covers, I don't think you could go wrong getting an Avengers 196. So that is Affordable Key Comic Books Revival, or Affordable Key Comic Books Volume 2. Hope you enjoyed. I'll have another one of these coming out. And want to share in the comments any books you think are now affordable that may have not have been affordable or always have been affordable. Feel free to do so. Take care, everybody.